Okay, here we are again with Yum Yum Burritos. Black Belt Packet, Discipline 1, page 15, number 6. Every week, Cheyenne's burrito stand uses 2 bags of tortillas. For how many days will 3/4 of a bag last? So, in Black Belt Discipline 1, you're mostly learning about fractions, how to multiply fractions, how to divide fractions, how to understand what fractions are, all that good stuff. So to me, this problem makes the most sense as a proportion. And proportions come in to Discipline 2. Now, that's one really cool thing about math, is that almost always you can use many different ways to solve a problem. My favorite way to solve this problem is using a proportion because it makes the most sense to me. So, with this, so every week she uses 2 bags, and we want to know for how many days she is going to use 3/4 of a bag. So, since the question is in terms of days, we want to make this in terms of days. So every week is 2 bags, and that means 7 days, because a week is 7 days, is 2 bags. Now, in Discipline 2, Yellow Belt, you learn about ratios, and a ratio is a comparison of 2 numbers. That's the definition of a ratio. So, let's say we have, just for an example to kind of give you an idea of what a ratio is, so let's say we have 3 black squares and 2 red circles. That means for every 3 black squares, we have 2 red circles. So the ratio, if you were to write it out as a ratio, you would write, let's say we can do 3 black squares to 2 red circles. Okay? Or you can write, and this is just 3 black and 2 red, 3 black and then a colon to 2 red. It's just comparing the 2 amounts. It's just this represents that and that represents that. And then the last way to write it out would be 3 black to 2 red. That last way looks like a fraction. And this is the way that you're almost always going to use your ratios, because you can do a lot of math with it in this form. Now, for this, over here we have 3 black squares to 2 red circles. And over here we have 7 days to 2 bags. So the first thing that I like to write out or think about is, what are the 2 things that we're dealing with here? You could always, sometimes you're dealing with more than 2, but for this problem, you're dealing with 2 things. And one of those things is days, and the other things is bags. The other thing is bags. So I'm going to start by drawing just a ratio comparing the days and the bags, which is just days to bags. And I know that 7 days is 2 bags, because it says so up here. And I'm using an equal sign because a proportion is 2 equal ratios. Now, this just says days and bags, and so that's just a ratio of what we're using. Now, I want to know how many days it takes to use 3/4 of a bag. So in this situation, since I want to make a ratio like this that's equal to it, and I don't really want my 3/4 in my fraction because it makes it a compound fraction, and that's a little bit more confusing. And this is the one that I want to know the answer to, is how many days it takes to do 3/4. And if 2 is equal to 3/4, then 7 has to be equal to that. It's just like equivalent fractions. So I'm going to turn this into a decimal just for the sake of this problem. So now I'm going to rewrite 7 over 2 is equal to, now 3/4 as a decimal. That's one of the ones that we really should know automatically, because there's 4 quarters and a dollar. Got your little dollar. $1. And we should know that 4 quarters equals a dollar. Right? And we know that 1 quarter is 25 cents, 2 quarters is 50 cents, 3 quarters is 75 cents, and altogether the 4 quarters equals $1. So if this is 3 quarters, 3/4, 3 out of 4, then that's 25, 50, 75. And, you know, you could also do 3/4. All fractions are division problems. 3 divided by 4. Top number in the house. 3 divided by 4. 4 goes into 3 0 times. We get annex a 0. 4 goes into 30 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. Don't subtract. 2, bring down the 0. You always bring down before you divide again. And 4 goes into 25 times. So 0.75. Now, instead of writing a question mark right here, I'm going to write an X, because it gets us that much closer to knowing about algebra. Now, there are a couple different ways to solve a proportion, to solve for X for proportion. The way that makes the most sense to me is called cross multiplication. And that's just because that's what I'm used to. Really, this question is asking, okay, well, how did I get from 2 to 0.75? Well, I had to divide by something, but I don't know what. So you could do 2 divided by 0.75 to find out what that would be, and then you would do 7 divided by whatever that number was to get X. So, well, we could do that. That's actually kind of more closely related to what we did in the other problem. So, since I know that this is going to be divided by something to get to that, then I know that that divided by that is going to equal that. So 2 divided by, I'll just use the 3/4. Maybe I never even had to turn it into 0.75. 3/4 equals, well, we got to do the keep, change, flip. I'm going to use that for this one. And 2 over 1 times 4 over 3 equals 8/3. Oh, that sounds familiar from watching the other videos. So 2, so that would mean that 2 divided by 8/3 should equal 3/4. So 2 over 1 times 3 over 8 equals 6 over 8. If you divide those both by 2, that equals 3/4. So now I know that this divided by 8/3 equals 0.75. So whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the top. So 7 divided by 8/3. I'm going to use my keep, change, flip again just for this problem. And 7 over 1. Change the sign. 21 over 8. And then 21 divided by 8. Because every fraction is a division problem. Top number in the house goes in twice. goes into 56 times. Whee, I'm running out of space. And I have 2 left over, and then I bring down whoop, 0. 8 goes into 20 twice again, and then 16, and then I get 4. Bring down another 0. There's 5. 2.65. So that means that for 3/4 of a day, oops, messing up at the very end of the problem. Boo! Boo! Okay, that means because it wanted to know 3/4 of a bag. 3/4 of a bag, it is 2.625 days. Or, oh, I was going to make it a fraction. 8 goes into 21 twice, and then you have 5 left over, so 2 and 5/8. 2 and 5/8 days. Alrighty. That's another way.